Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. In this episode, we have a confession from our brothers who is actually a pastor, and he wants to share with us his life story. This has to do with what he has been through at the hands of his wife and his own biological brother. Sometimes some of the things that we hear in this life is one that makes a lot of people lose interest in the institution that we have. The difficulty of this man having to find out about the paternity of his children is just mind-boggling. Can a pastor's wife really do this kind of thing? Well, to find out what really this whole confession is all about, let us go and listen to him. And please don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video so that others can listen to it.
Hello my brother, I greet you and your listeners in the name of our Maker. But before I start with whatever I have to tell you, I want to put out there for anyone listening to me to have it at the back of his or her mind that betrayal is not the most painful thing. I want to say that stabbing you is not as painful as knowing the person that took the knife and did it. That is exactly how I feel, and that is what I am going through right now in my life. You see, as a pastor who is overseeing a church in the capital city, when my wife came into my life, I saw her to be someone who could manage my business for me, whilst I go on to do my pastoral duties. I had already started my business before the pastoral duties began. And I wanted to honor the call, and so, at a point on my ministry, combining both work was something that really was not feasible. So, when I got married to my wife, I told her to take charge of the business whilst I also concentrated on the ministry. So at the end of every month, I sit with my wife and we will go through the checks and balances of the business. That has been the way we were managing this business and the ministry together without encountering any problems. You see something, not because I am a pastor, but I certainly comes from a house where we do not put pressure on our women. Be it work-related, relationships or anything that has to do with our women, we do not want to stress them. So when the business got to a point where things became too much of a burden for my wife, I had wanted her to stop, so I employ people to run the business. But she talked to me about the importance of her presence in the business. And upon second thought of what she told me, I realized she was telling me something good and needed to be considered. So I told her that I would then employ 1 or 2 people who would come and assist her in what she does. The businesses are 2. We have a cold store business and we have this building materials business. With the cold store business, we do have about 4 branches, each one with its own freezing house, where we store our meats. With the help of the Lord, I will say that the business was very successful. And the building materials, we do have 2 branches. One in Kumasi and the other one in Accra. So when I told my wife about the need to bring in others to help her do the runs and help in managing the work, she rejected that idea. Instead, what she told me was that she didn't want to involve someone outside to be in charge of the monetary affairs of the business. That was when I suggested that she then bring her younger sister on board to help her. But she insisted I go in for my younger brother because, with her sister, there was no way she would agree to leave the nursing that she wanted to become for any reason. And so after some weeks of thinking about her idea, I agreed and decided to let my brother come on board. It is not as if I didn't want to have him to be working there, but I didn't want anything that could start a fight between my wife and any of my family members, since it could trigger really fast should something like that happen. I know this for a fact because my mother wouldn't waste time in attacking my wife when it has to do with her younger son. But since she said nothing bad will happen, I decided to talk to my mother about it, so that she would talk to her son to be of good behavior. Because it was my wife who has recommended him to come and work there. My brother visited me and told me that he didn't like the idea of making the thing look like he was a bad person. He said I could have talked to him as a senior brother that I am instead of using our mother. To cut everything short about that particular instance, my brother started working with my wife and I could tell he was really of a good benefit to my wife and the business in general. Sometimes it can even take a week and my wife will not go to the workplace. It will be Eric, my brother, who will be doing all the rounds as far as the business was concerned. So, in about some months into my brother working with my wife, she sat me down one evening and she told me that we should get my brother closer to us so that if in case she wants to have a discussion in the evening with him, it will be easier. Because at this time, my brother was staying with my mother. They were in a 3-bedroom apartment that I had gotten them, together with our sister. My sister, on the other hand, is a teacher, and there was no way she could work for us. Except sometimes, she comes to the workplace on Saturdays and help her sister-in-law. Sometimes too, she will come home and then help her with cooking and have fun together. My family, be it the one I was building with my wife and that of my own family, were just perfect. And I always did thank the Lord for such a blessing in my life. To have a wife who always sees to it that, when it comes to our mothers and immediate families, the right things are done. I was convinced as to what my wife was saying, and so I rented a chamber and hall self-contained apartment for my brother just some few minutes away from our house, so that we can always meet in my house on time to talk about business anytime we have to, just like what my wife had suggested. By God's grace, things were going on well. And the ministry was also growing so rapidly that I started having some mega invitations from some of the well-known senior pastors in the country. By so doing, I sometimes do not have the chance to go through the business discussions and meetings with my wife and brother. But knowing how they were committed in getting the business moving far, I felt no need to always get them to do that with them when I return. My wife became pregnant, and that was some of the beautiful moments of my life as a husband and a man. At long last, the good Lord was ready to bless us with children on top of the growth of the business. She gave birth to my first child, who happened to be a girl. I loved her and still do love her as a father should. Honestly, when you see my daughter and you see her mother, nothing will make you ask if she is her mother. She took after her mother. And then over time, our second-born came. He was a boy, and I felt really blessed for having them. My world was all about my 2 children and my ministry. You see, in this life, God really throws at you what you can endure. But to tell you the truth, I don't know how I was able to endure some of the things I am about to tell you. The lady that I have been praising to you all this while changed completely towards me at home. By this time, my son was just 2 years old, and the girl was 1.5 years older than him. But then, she puts up a saint attitude whenever we get visitors in the house or we are in church. This sudden change of her continued until I had to find solace in my mother about her sudden change. I told myself that there was nothing that I was going to involve my mother when it comes to me and my wife. But to tell you the truth, I honestly couldn't take it anymore. I just felt the need to talk to someone, and I didn't also want to expose her out there. That means I needed someone that I knew would never talk about my problems with anyone. And that person happens to be my mother. She called my wife one day and decided to talk to her about how her behavior is affecting me. My brother, it was better if my mother had not done that. That day, I heard the worst things I have ever heard in my life. It went on till she told me that, if I wanted to be seen as someone who deserves a respect as a husband, I should do what husbands do. This was shocking, because this is a woman that do have everything she ever wanted. I don't prevent her from doing anything nor prevent her from buying whatever she wanted to buy. This thing was weighing on me heavily. So I have this pastor friend who I told him about the issue to seek his advice, but in a way that he did not get to know it was my own issue. I told him about a member who has brought a complaint about his wife and wanted me to help him solve it. So I told him about what the supposed man had told me that his own wife said to him when she confronted him. He asked me to find out from the man if they do have children. I asked why, and he told me that if they do not have children, then it could be what the woman was referring to. But if it happens that they do have children or a child, then there is more to the children than what the man knows. But then, he cautioned me to find a nice way to discuss the issue with the man, since I can cause a lot of problems in the marriage. I didn't take what he told me serious because I never thought my wife could do anything bad like that. So I had totally forgotten about this whole issue, when on a day I was watching television in the evening alone in the house when one man was talking about how his wife started behaving strangely towards him. And later he got to know that the child he thought he had with the wife was not actually his. This thing, my brother, it hit me like the person was talking to me directly. That day, when my wife returned home from work, she went straight to the bathroom without greeting me. And after that she went straight to bed. To be very much honest with you, I couldn't sleep that whole night. I started questioning everything. I tried to tell myself about how my wife cannot do such a thing to me. But you see, the more I tried, the more I still felt like I should find out. That night when I finally was able to catch some sleep, it was as if in my dream, someone was telling me that, if you find out it's not true, there is nothing wrong with it. But if you don't, and later you get to know all that you know is a lie, what will you do? It was a very brief dream. I couldn't sleep again. The next day, she asked me if I would go out. I had told her I would be in the house, but she shouldn't worry, for I would take the kids to school. So she can go ahead and go to work. I had taken the decision to go to the hospital for checkups and do some tests on the kids before I would take them to school. So I took the kids to this doctor that I know. He happens to be just someone that I know who we share so much respect for each other. He even at first tried to talk me out of me doing the test. But I explained to him the need for me to get it done so that I can get this whole suspicion and doubt out of my mind. He understood my position and helped me get the samples they needed for the test done. But then I asked him to keep whatever the results will be between us and no one else. He shouldn't even let my wife know that I had come there for such a thing. I took the kids back to school and returned back home. But throughout that time, I wasn't the same person. But I had to pretend everything was okay with me. But then I was just hoping my own story would not be like that of the man. The day I got the news, the doctor called me and asked me to come for the results, and my brother, it was the most darkest days and moments of my life. You see, when I got to the hospital, he asked me to help him conduct a very conclusive test for me. And so, he asked that I help me with my semen for some important further checks. I didn't understand, but I had no choice than to get to your room they provided for me, and I got them what they needed for the test. He asked me to come back the next day. The next day when I went there, honestly I do not know how I was able to drive back to the house. I wasn't the biological father of all the 2 children. And the reason he asked for my semen was that he wanted to check for other possibilities. He told me that I did had a low speed count and was not possible to even impregnate a woman in the first place. The doctor told me for sure that he asked for my semen because he wanted to see if everything was well with my reproductive organs. And if it was so, he would have told me that I was the father. But getting to know that I couldn't be the father, there was no point in having me go on with such lie. He said he feared for what might happen to the children, that is why he wanted to be sure if there was any chance of me impregnating a woman. So with this information at the back of my mind, I was drowned in tears at the doctor's office. Honestly, if anything had happened on the road, I wouldn't have known.
Thank you. Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Indeed, I believe this story is something that is really tearing me down. Oh, feel sad for this our brother. How can someone you trust so much betray you like this? Exactly his point when he said, stabbing you in the back is not the most painful thing, but when you get to know the person who did it. A woman who is married to a pastor can do that. What this world is turning out to be right now is really something unimaginable. But in all this, I will say that it is only the good Lord who knows the best for us all. I will advise our brother to constantly seek the face of the Lord. Because he has something special on the way coming for you. Maybe, this is meant to test your faith in him. To see how and what you will do in times like this. Like I always say, these are not just stories for story's sake. They are meant for us not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. That's why we share these stories with you. Just like we always do in this house, please let us also hear from you, our beautiful family members. Let's listen to your views and concerns and comments in the comment section. Yes, just as we are here to share with ourselves what is going on out there, we do bring these conversations with you, our family members, to help their innocent brothers and sisters to realize what is happening out there, that they do not have any idea about. So that they can make their own decisions going forward in their day-to-day activities. I just hope that we honestly take the important lessons from these stories to better our lives and decisions. Stay blessed and be safe. Thanks for being a part of this growing family. Kindly share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. And if you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.